So, there's this fever dream of a vampire anime. More specifically, an aesthetically pleasing looking visual kei bands anime called Visual Prison.
You're not really fine, but you just...
But even then, being the dumbass that I am, I didn't expect something way over the top because, it's not that deep. I thought this was all just a big ad for whatever music related thing they're doing, and that's it, right? Wrong. Surprise, surprise, episode 10 goes wild since the main plotline of the whole anime gets finally addressed in the last few episodes of the season, obviously, from episode 10 to episode 12. And it was unforgettable for sure, but it has also been bothering me to this day, so I'm gonna talk about it. But, content warning, obviously there's gonna be spoilers from now on. Also, character deletion is the main point of this whole video, so click off if you're not up for that. Now, the quick recap. So there's protagonist, Dilf. I know he doesn't look it, but trust me bro. Boyfriend of said protagonist, and Eve. In the main group, there is also Elizabeth and emo leader, but those two come in later. Also, yeah, they have names, but I don't remember them except for the MBs. Anyway, protagonist is your name. Relatable, I know, until you find out he can apparently kinda sing. And is also a half vampire or dampir as they call it in here. But I'm getting a bit ahead of myself. Let me start from the beginning. Protagonist boy just dropped in Harajuku. I don't know what's up with that, but what he does do on screen is dramatically attach a poster of his fave band on a wall. It seems like he's grown up with their music as emotional support, and his bias is the blonde one. While visiting the places his fave band's fave song was shot in, he randomly comes across a live performance competition between two vampire groups, Eclipse and Lost Eden. Anyway, he got through some vampire stuff for the first time shortly after, so he passed out. It then cuts to him waking up, Dilf having helped him, but get this, Dilf is also the fave band member. That's when all the vampires we've seen so far gather up at Dilf's place to tell him he's Dhampir, and we get the main world concept, more specifically that vampires have been existing for centuries, living under the rule of the Scarlet Moon. Speaking of, there is an annual event for the Scarlet Moon, Visual Prison, yeah, the name drop, which is, you guessed it, visual kei competition where the group that, in the Scarlet Moon's opinion, performs the best song will get a Scarlet Tear. Getting 10 of those little bad boys will allow that group to add a rule that all vampires will have to follow from that point on. Having said that, Dilf lets protagonist know that he can also participate, but he won't be joining him himself. In the next few episodes, the protagonist meets his boyfriend, but also Eve, and they all form a group. Yeah, including Dilf. Anyway, they left him no choice really, and they have been working together to compete in Visual Prison. But before that takes place, on to the episode 10 specifics. So protagonist came back from a little trip to his hometown, getting a break to get some air and think, since he needed to make up his mind on what he wants his music to be exactly, and also having himself completely turned into a vampire or not. Although he literally did not have to choose one right now, but okay, go ahead I guess. So he's excited to talk about his final decision with Dilf. Basically, he just wants one, his music to be there in case someone needs it, the same way he needed his fave band's music, get it? And two, to become a full vampire, to be able to sing with them forever and ever and ever and ever and ever and ever and ever. Dilf goes, "Oh my god, love the character development, so proud of you bestie," and hugs him. And then bites him to turn him into a full vampire, but then it fades to white. We had to teleport into Dilf's mind so we can flash back into his memories in a cooler way. Now, you may be like, what the fuck? And so is the protagonist, as he should, and then Dilf starts explaining. Back in the day, he was besties with the protagonist's parents, but at some point they got into a fatal accident. Dilf revealed to the biological dad that he's a vampire in hopes of turning him, but biological dad insisted he saves his wife instead. The problem with this was women can't be turned into vampires in this world, yet Dilf tries anyway, breaking two of the Scarlet Moon rules in that same night, telling a human he's a vampire and fitting onto a human, even though that's not what he was doing. Eventually, it turns out that the parents both passed, but their baby survived. Dilf had no idea though. Yikes. But then he explains how it would make perfect sense for the protagonist to have received Dilf's blood in that moment, turning him into a vampire. But apparently that shit doesn't happen. Oh my god, the parents were so quirky, I guess. All of that info dump made the protagonist, understandably so, to the point where Dilf has to straight up say that he's his third parent. His vampire dad, this anime's Dilf. But then he adds that he wasn't even planning to tell him. But the protagonist found out about it, so now he had to. Music is the greatest bond we could have. My ass! It does make sense the way they've set it up. Dilf had the same bond with biological dad and son, but it still sounds stupid. Like, baby mama, are you saying this shit? So then Dilf goes, and that's my cue. Please have this Sonya made and sing it for me because I can't. Haha. And he reaches out, trying to get his last words literally across. And his hand. And this is right where shit starts to go down. He gets those red breaking marks all over his neck now too, begging the protagonist to remember their promise to sing, and this is gonna be important in a couple of scenes time. The whole scene ends with the Scarlet Moon eating the unconscious Dilf up, and then it cuts to the next day. Or not. Apparently it has been a while since that day, and everyone is going on with their normal lives except they've broken up the band because protagonist is too busy singing his fave song from his fave band to no audience other than his deleted dad who used to be his fave band but is now in a casket on stage. I'm 100% positive that is not what Dilf meant when he said don't stop singing because of me. And listen, I don't want to seem mean or anything. Obviously, that is not something he can just move on from in like one day, but that is not the way to go about it either, you know? Another thing I want to mention about this scene though is that even with the whole camp musical vampire world situation, this scene stays the most bizarre, especially when with my little film knowledge, I know for a fact if they were just done with him and he just deleted, he wouldn't still be in frame like this. Which is bad because I only signed up for pretty vampire bands, like are we not here just to vibe? And we're only halfway through the episode. It's already not my favorite experience. 0 out of 10, would not recommend. Anyway, what's worse is that his boyfriend is watching from a distance, but thankfully Eve is there. We cut to the red group where Elizabeth mentions that vampires go into a vegetative state until they get deleted. There, I'm already proven right. They're tiptoeing around the delete word, which in any other case would relieve me because he'd definitely come back. But they keep pushing it here, so I can't even be sure of anything at this point. Back to the red group, they got a little emo. They can't do anything to help because Dilf fucked up and had it coming. Now, we go check up on the other group, the third one, and what they have to say about it. We can't blame the puppy for whimpering. We get it! I still think he's wasting his and everybody else's time. Besides that, they also make it seem as if they don't care too much. Lol, they just want to get those 10 scarlet tears and add a rule that will protect their little lambs. Meaning they're plain human fans. I can't keep defending you guys. Not another word for Dilf. And honestly, it makes them look bad. Especially since those two, Emo Leader and Dilf, used to have their own group together. the protagonist's fave group, yes. They really just said, anyways, so. Which brings us perfectly to the next scene, where boyfriend is Angie, because the third group was the group that put in the rule of forbidding vampires from feeding on humans, which honestly makes sense, except it's not convenient for our mains. I take it all back. Then we go back to the protagonist with his dad in the open casket on stage with him. He's not singing this time, just talking. The pause button is looking really good right now, so I pressed it, but I ended up pressing it again. So we flash back to what happened right after Dilf passed out, and they were panicking. But Eve explains that the punishment from the Scarlet Moon was Dilf losing his feelings for music, which means he had this massive mark on his back and hands because he was already getting deleted this whole time. But then, after meeting the protagonist, he got his feelings back again, and then he used whatever strength he had left to turn him into a full vampire. They're pushing it. But we finally got to the MPs again. Eve is out here grinding for those scarlet tears. Doesn't last too long though, the protagonist is back, except Immolator is here too, so you'd expect, rightfully so, him to be that someone who would finally tell him that is not what Dilf meant. Well, no, he's just as much of a dumbass. He'd rather also sing for Dilf's body in the open casket, I guess. Yes, wait, what? So Pocket-Sized Dilf and Immolator are having a staring contest while Immolator is going through all 5 stages of grief in his head, ending it off by just cursing him out a little. Then, protagonist goes to touch Pocket-Sized Dilf, but he disappears just as fast.
Supposed to give, but it did not give what needed to be gave to the highest of giving.
What was that? I guess you'll never know because that was it for this video. Y'all can see why it was the episode that has been living in my mind rent-free since I first watched it, for all the wrong reasons. Did I take it a little more seriously than I should? Probably. But in my defense, that just means all that back and forth they did actually worked. They really were onto something, I guess. I hate it here. Bye.